Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a quick and dirty process to create your very first web page. Now, this is going to be the template, basically, for every page that you're going to make going forward. We're going to put all the basic elements in here that we'll need for all of our pages used in this course. First step, open your text editor. Okay? That's either Text Wrangler if you're using Mac, or if you're using Windows, that would be Notepad+. First thing we need to put in, doc type. Once I learn how to type. And our doc type, as always, is HTML. Second thing, head, or HTML. Sorry. Third thing, head, open head tag. Let's throw an open title tag in there. Not going to put a title in just yet because we're going to save this as a template. Closing head tag. Next thing, we're going to open up the body. Open body tag. Give ourselves a couple of spaces. Closing body tag. Closing HTML tag. We're going to save this file as HTML template.html. Then we're going to go to our web browser and run it. Okay, we shouldn't see anything unless we right-click on the page if you're using Chrome. And Firefox and Internet Explorer and Safari are somewhat similar. And click View Page Source. And what we should see is the page, all the stuff we just typed. Okay? If you're not seeing this, that means there's a problem. All right. Now, here's what we want to do next. Is we want to go back to that text, web page we just created, and we want to do a file, save as. We want to go save this as something else because we have our template that we're going to use for everything going forward. But now we're going to create a couple of sample pages. So I'm going to call this one HTML sample page 1. And what you'll see is when I'm naming these pages, this is very important to remember this. I want to make sure that anytime I have what would normally be a space in the name, for example, HTML sample page 1, I use a space instead, or I'm sorry, an underline instead. These file names need to have, they cannot have spaces in them, or it tends to screw up the web browser, especially older web browsers who might not be able to understand that the name of the page is HTML sample page 1. Instead, it needs to be HTML underscore sample underscore page underscore 1.html. It is absolutely critical that you remember that. A lot of the time somebody's like, hey, I can't get this to render properly. I'm like, oh, let's take a look. And it's usually because of little things like this that they can be pretty annoying for you when you're trying to code them. And you can't open up stuff properly, and then you get frustrated and you send it to me, and I take a look at it and we get it all fixed up. But to avoid that in the first place, just remember when we're dealing with syntax here for file naming conventions to make sure that you use underscores instead of spaces. Go ahead and save your file, and now what we're going to do is we're going to give this a title. And between the opening and closing title tags, I'm just going to type in something like this. Let's see. I'm going to say Starbucks. Well, I was going to pick on Dunkin' Donuts, but let's go pick on Starbucks instead. I'm going to say Starbucks coffee. And then inside the body section here, between the open and closing body tags, I'm going to type in H2, so an H2 size heading tag. And I'm going to go ahead and do a closing tag. And then right in the middle here, I'm going to place my cursor and I'm going to type in welcome to Starbucks. Then I'm going to type in a paragraph. You'll notice that I gave myself a couple of blank spaces here, so I don't have all of my code on top of each other. It's just more readable that way. I'm going to say something like this. What our coffee special of the day is burnt caramel. Sounds disgusting. All right. Then a closing p tag. So here's what I have. I have a sample page that has a title of Starbucks Coffee. At the very top, we have an H2 size heading that says Welcome to Starbucks, and then a paragraph underneath that says our coffee special of the day is burnt caramel, which I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't sound too tasty to me. I don't know. Maybe you like that kind of stuff, but who knows? All right, the next thing I need to do is go back onto my web browser and let's go open this file. What did I call you? Sample page 2. There we go. Sample page 1. Open the wrong file. Let me try that again. Open file. Here we go. Sample page 1. And what you'll see is it says Welcome to Starbucks, and it says our coffee special day is burnt caramel. That is so gross. All right. So that is our first example. Let's talk about HTML elements. Okay. We have all sorts of different elements. There are a ton of them. There's actually HTML element reference on W3 Schools, which will reference quite a bit. But the ones I wanted to show you today were the heading and the paragraph, which we've done. What we can do too is we can type in what's called a line break. So let's say I have a paragraph, right? And I'm going to type something in here that says something like this. This is my first line. This is my second line. This is my third line. And then close paragraph. Now, what I'm seeing here as I'm typing this in is that I have text on 3 different lines. But when I save my file and I go and I run it in my web browser, when I go to render it, what you're going to see is everything comes out on the same line. And that's because we didn't tell, using HTML, we didn't tell our browser what to do with these lines other than this content, other than it's one line that it should print, because there's nothing in here breaking this up. We can do what's called a line break, which is a self-closing tag, which is simply BR. Put it at the end of whatever content it was that you want a line break in between. On the final one, you don't need a line break because it automatically does that with the closing paragraph tag. So when I save the file and I go to run it, render it here, I now have 3 different lines that say this is my first line, my second line, my third line. What you'll see right here. I'm going to go back to my browser, or to my text editor now. All right. Another thing that we have is what's called a nested element. Okay? Which is what we see right here inside the body tag with H2 and our paragraph. That would be an example of a nested element. Another type of element that we have is what's called an empty element, and that's what this line break is right here. Now here's the thing that you need to remember as well, is that with your tag names, they should all be in lowercase. Okay, even if your tags are in uppercase, for example, here for H2 size heading, if it has a capital H, well, that'll work, but it's not correct. Okay, you want it to be lowercase. That's what everybody does, industry standard. So if you're writing code, this is what it should look like. So this is a just a simple breakdown of different HTML elements. We're going to be going over all this stuff in great detail throughout the course. So one of the things that I would recommend that you do is first, don't freak out if you're like, well, what the heck is an H2, H3, H6? What's a P? What's a BR? What's an HR? What's all this? Oh, don't get all freaked out. Some people do. Don't do that. What you want to do is just play around with your code. You're not going to break anything. This stuff is not going to crash your computer or start World War III or anything like that. All you need to do is just play around a little bit. There is on w3schools.com in the HTML reference, there is a tag reference there. And you can go ahead and open that up, bookmark it, and play around with those different tags. See what they do. We're going to be going over most of them. There are about 30 to 40 of them that we're going to have to kind of use and memorize. But we're going to be doing that over the duration of the course, especially about the first half of it before we really get into CSS. So again, don't freak out. Just play around a little bit. And if you have any questions, let me know and I will get right back to you. Thanks.